Sunrise broke over Varela Prime like a wound splitting open, searing the battered colony in molten gold. Lightning arced in the bruised sky, throwing stark shadows across the battlefield where the last defenders of the planet faltered. Smoke curled from burning structures, embers swirling in the wind. Above it all, Warlord Zevra watched, standing tall on the observation deck of her command vessel as it hovered over the chaos. Her emerald skin gleamed in the morning light, muscular arms folded over scavenged metal armor, every plate a trophy from conquered worlds. Her hair blazed like a torch, red as fresh blood, twisting in the wind of open bulkheads. She spoke, her voice amplified and woven through resonant circuits, pouring out across the dying colony. The sound was impossible, music shaped to enthrall, a melody that thrummed in the bones. Surrender, lay down your arms, join me. The words shimmered with an undertone that danced just beyond conscious hearing, as seductive as it was irresistible. Human soldiers faltered, eyes glazed, some staggered and dropped their rifles, others knelt, hands raised in submission. The resistance unraveled in a matter of moments, centuries of defiance snuffed out by a single voice. Zevra's lips curved in satisfaction. Lieutenant Grath, a broad-shouldered reptilian in battered gold armor, approached, boots clanking on the deck. All sectors report compliance, Warlord, except the Southern Research Facility. No effect there. They remain active. Zevra's eyes narrowed. Impossible. My song never fails. He gestured to the tactical display, a map alive with shifting colors. Red zones, her dominion, pulsed across the city. But at the southern edge, a stark circle of blue remained untouched, her influence vanishing at its boundary. Nothing penetrates, Grath said. Not even a whisper. Zevra's satisfaction faded, replaced by a spark of irritation and anticipation. Conquest was sweetest when it cost something. She straightened, armor glinting, and snapped, "Prepare for landing. Bring a breach team." The command vessel descended, thrusters kicking up ash and debris as it set down amid the wreckage. Zevra led her squad through the ruined streets, boots sinking into blackened mud, her presence commanding fear and awe. The sealed blast doors of the science complex loomed ahead, untouched amid destruction. Zevra pressed her clawed hand to the cold alloy and sang a single, shimmering note. It resonated through the metal, making it ripple and soften as if it were wax under a flame. Inside, faint machinery hummed, a stubborn heartbeat in the silence. Zevra motioned for her squad to stand back, then wrenched the half-melted door aside. The research complex was dim, lit by the blue glow of active consoles and the flicker of failing overhead lights. Cables snaked across the floor, leading to a central console where a lone human worked with brisk efficiency. He wore a lab coat singed at the edges, dark hair tousled, but eyes sharp with intelligence. Dr. Jonas Harker didn't flinch at her arrival. He adjusted a sonic nullifier, fingers dancing over controls with methodical precision. Zevra entered, heat radiating from her body, voice a velvet threat. "Human, you will stand aside and surrender your work." Harker didn't look up. "I'd prefer not to, if it's all the same." Zevra's eyes narrowed. She sang a low, guttural phrase, the kind that had broken the minds of stubborn warlords and pacified riotous mobs. The melody shimmered in the air, wrapping around Harker's mind, but he remained utterly still, focused on his instrument. "You do not resist?" she asked, circling him, boots echoing on metal. "Most beg to obey by now." "I'm not resisting," he replied, glancing at her with measured calm. "Your voice is fascinating, but my mind just doesn't interpret it as you expect. Information, not compulsion." He pointed to the humming device beside him. "The nullifier ensures it." Zevra's gaze flicked to the nullifier, annoyance deepening. She shifted tactics. voice rising to a crystalline trill, every note designed to entice, to overwhelm. Her hand brushed his arm, claws gentle, her skin radiating a heat that threatened to set nerves ablaze. "Most would crave to please me," she murmured, her breath hot against his neck. Harker met her gaze, heartbeat quick but eyes steady. "Perhaps I'm simply immune. Or perhaps I choose how I respond." Zevra's intrigue sharpened into challenge. "Let us test that." She leaned closer, singing a note so pure it shimmered with dangerous pleasure, engineered to unravel every defense. The room pulsed with her power, but Harker calmly reached over and toggled the nullifier. The air snapped silent, her song absorbed, every vibration quenched. For the first time in years, Zevra's voice failed her. The silence was complete, unnatural, ringing with the absence of control. She stepped back, studying Harker anew. In the charged hush, anticipation bloomed, fierce and unexpected. This was no easy conquest. This was a beginning. Harker was escorted aboard Zevra's flagship under a sky still bruised by war. The corridors throbbed with faint, otherworldly harmonics, a symphony that seemed to pulse through the very metal of the ship. Yet when his new quarters slid open, Harker was stunned by their comfort. The space was no cell. A bed as wide as a diplomat's, soft blue lights, walls that shimmered gently with each passing note of the ship's internal resonance. There was even a panel of human-style amenities. Books, a steaming carafe of strong black coffee, fresh linens. It was all designed, he realized, not to contain him, but to observe him. He ran a hand along the curved wall, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath his palm. This was a habitat, but also an experiment. Harker smiled despite himself. "Not bad for a phenomenon," he muttered. The door chimed, and before he could answer, Zevra strode in. She had changed since the invasion. Her armor gleamed, plates of mismatched metals catching the light like a mosaic. She moved with the confidence of a queen who had never known defeat, her green skin glowing faintly, eyes bright with a predatory spark. Gone was the ceremonial helm. She was exposed, and somehow even more dangerous for it. Without preamble, she dropped into the seat opposite him, her posture relaxed, but her gaze, anything but. "You are comfortable?" she asked, voice low and edged with a music that vibrated in his bones. Harker nodded, hiding his surprise at her directness. "It's more than I expected." Zevra tilted her head, smile curling. "You are not a prisoner, Jonas Harker. You are a curiosity. The first I have encountered who does not fall to my song. That deserves respect. And study." He met her gaze, heart racing. "I suppose that makes me, what? An honored guest? A puzzle?" She laughed, a rich, resonant sound. "Both." Her eyes flicked over him, appraising, hungry. "You intrigue me. No other species resists. None have slipped from my grasp. Yet you—" She leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You stand apart. Tell me, Harker. What is it about your kind, your intimacy, your connection? How do you bind to one another?" The question caught him off guard. "You mean human intimacy?" Zevra's lips parted in a sly, predatory smile. "Yes. The ways you touch. The ways you share yourselves." "Explain it to me. I wish to understand." He hesitated, searching her face for mockery and finding none. "It's complicated. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes emotional. Sometimes it's just being seen by someone, being known. Physical, emotional, intellectual. We share those, but not like you." Zevra's tone softened, curiosity warming her features. "My people bond through resonance. Our voices blend, frequencies joining until sensation is heightened, even overwhelming. It is not just pleasure. It is surrender. a dissolving of barriers. No secrets remain. She let that hang between them, a challenge and an invitation. Harker's mouth was dry. That sounds intense. She leaned closer, her presence enveloping. And you? Do you ever let go of control, Harker? Or is your mind always analyzing, always dissecting? He smiled, but it was a nervous one. I've been accused of overthinking a time or two. Then let us experiment. Zevra's tone was half command, half caress. She tilted her head, and a melody shimmered from her lips. Gentle, nothing like the hypnotic power she wielded before. It was a song of invitation, not compulsion. The harmonics danced through the air, brushing over his skin, threading through his nerves. For a moment, Harker felt himself sway, defenses dissolving as if someone had drawn back the curtain of his mind and let the sunrise in. He exhaled shakily. That's different. Her eyes widened, pleased. You felt it? A little, he admitted, flushing. You're not forcing it, just inviting me to experience. She nodded, gaze intent. I can only command or destroy, but with you, I find myself wanting to ask, to learn. Their conversations shifted after that. Evenings blurred into one another, each encounter a new negotiation of boundaries. Zevra brought questions rather than orders, about human families, childhood, heartbreak. Harker told her of his lost brother, of the first time he tasted snow, of fear and hope, and the ache of loneliness among the stars. She listened with a hunger that surprised him, sometimes reaching out to touch his hand, fingers warm and strong. Your vulnerabilities fascinate me, Jonas. You do not hide them, even now. He shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. Maybe that's how we survive, by letting someone see us, flaws and all. Zevra's laughter was softer now, almost wistful. Among my kind, we are taught to dominate, to overwhelm. Connection is a byproduct, not the purpose. She looked away, jaw tense. But with you, I wonder if there is another way. One evening, the harmonics in the room shifted, no longer the background hum of machinery, but a gentle, expectant thrum. Zevra lingered by the viewport, watching stars slip past in streaks of silver and indigo. Harker stood beside her, both of them silent, the distance between them shrinking with every breath. She turned, gaze fierce, and closed the space between them in 2 strides. Her hands came up, framing his face. He felt the heat of her palms, the strength in her grip, and then her lips were on his. The kiss was fierce, electric, a collision of alien warmth and human want. Harker's mind went blank, reason scattering in a white-hot rush of sensation. Her canines grazed his lower lip, and he shivered, hands coming up instinctively to her waist. She drew back, breathless, her eyes searching his. This changes everything, Zevra murmured, voice trembling at the edges of a new resonance neither of them understood. The moment was shattered by a piercing alarm, the ship's harmonics twisting into discord. Zevra's calm crackled to life, Grath's urgent voice overlapping the alert. Warlord, enemy vessel on approach. Human ship is jamming all vocal transmissions across this sector. Zevra's expression hardened, the warmth of intimacy replaced by the sharp focus of command. But she held Harker's gaze a moment longer, something unspoken flickering between them. Then, like a storm, she was gone, striding out to face the unknown, leaving Harker's pulse still thrumming with the taste of her kiss and the promise of what might come next. Zevra's stride was thunder in the narrow corridor as she marched Harker into an interrogation chamber lit by red emergency strobes. She shut the door with a flick of her wrist, and the harmonics of the flagship faded to a tense hush. She did not bother to sit. Instead, she stood before him, armor flashing as she folded her arms across her chest, her emerald skin drawn taut with fury and fear. "What have you done?" Her voice was a blade, every syllable sharp and controlled. "Your kind is jamming my commands. Speak." Harker steadied himself, feeling the weight of her gaze. "It's not just the jamming. There are sonic disruptors now. Portable devices, built from my research. They neutralize your species' resonance. Anyone can use one." Zevra's expression flickered. Shock, then calculation. "You gave them this power?" "I didn't mean for it to be a weapon," Harker said quietly. "It was meant to protect, not destroy." She stepped closer, her presence a wall of heat and frustration. "If these disruptors spread, my people will be helpless. Our greatest weapon, gone. You have changed the balance of everything." He met her gaze, regret burning in his chest. "That wasn't my intent." A chime cut through the tension, sharp and insistent. Zevra pressed her calm, and High Commander Sarek's image flared to life, a blue-tinged hologram, his features severe. "Zevra, the humans threaten the fleet's security. Eradicate the disruptors and all who possess them. Return immediately. That is an order." Sarek's words crackled with finality. Zevra's jaw tightened as the transmission faded. She looked at Harker with something that was almost grief. "You are now a target, Jonas. My orders are clear." A heavy silence stretched. Then Zevra moved, swift and silent, to the control panel. She keyed in a sequence, locking the doors. Her next words were a whisper, urgent and intimate. "Listen to me. There is a vent behind the secondary bulkhead. Maintenance access. It leads to the lower hangar." Harker blinked, realization dawning. "You're helping me escape." She hesitated only a moment. "If you stay, Sarek will hunt you. I will not be the instrument of your death." Her hand found his, claws tracing the curve of his cheek. Her eyes glistened with fierce resolve. "When you reach the hangar, find Pod 74. It's ready to launch." He drew her into his arms, the moment raw with desperation. Their kiss was fierce, hungry, a collision of longing and dread. Zevra's hands framed his face, her touch trembling. "Don't make me regret this," she breathed, her voice breaking on the edge of a sob. "I won't," he promised, memorizing the warmth of her lips, the brush of her claws. "I swear it." Reluctantly, she let him go. "Go. Now. Before I change my mind." Harker slipped into the shadows, heart pounding as he ducked through the maintenance panel Zevra had unlocked. The tunnels were cramped and labyrinthine, filled with the steady hum of engines and the distant wail of alarms. He moved quickly, adrenaline sharpening his senses, recalling the directions Zevra had whispered in his ear. As he reached the lower hangar, klaxons blared, echoing through the vaulting space. Technicians scattered, shouting orders as blast doors began to seal. Harker sprinted for Pod 74, slipping past startled guards. He slammed the hatch closed and powered up the systems, hands moving with desperate speed. Red lights pulsed, the countdown blaring in his ears. With a shudder, the scout pod launched into the black. The hangar doors snapped shut just behind him, the pod spinning free of Zevra's flagship. For a breathless moment, Harker saw Zevra's ship looming above, her escorts already in pursuit, sleek hunter craft arcing after him, weapons locking on. Harker dove the pod into the asteroid belt ringing Varela Prime, the controls bucking beneath his grip. Chunks of ancient rock spun past, fragments colliding in showers of debris. Laser fire stitched the darkness as Zevra's hunters closed in. He called up a nav chart, plotting a course for the last known location of Dr. Lin's research vessel, the only place where evidence of the disruptor's origins might still exist. He wove between tumbling asteroids, alarms screaming with every near miss. The pod took a glancing hit, hull plating sparking, but he pushed forward, sweat stinging his eyes. At last, the hulk of Dr. Lin's ship emerged from the asteroid fog, crushed and pitted, but its beacon still faintly alive. Harker docked, breath ragged, and clambered aboard. In the darkened corridors, he searched desperately for the research core. But when he reached it, he found nothing. Just an empty drive slot, diagnostic lights dark. A transmission crackled through the pod's comm. ISS Resolute to unknown vessel. Identify yourself. Relief crashed through him. This is Dr. Jonas Harker. I have critical data on sonic disruptors, requesting immediate extraction. Confirmed, Dr. Harker. Stand by. The human cruiser ISS Resolute materialized out of the gloom, all angular armor and blinding searchlights. Grapples snagged the scout pod, hauling him aboard. Medics swept him into the clean, bright corridors, and soon he found himself on the bridge, face to face with Commander Bryce. Broad, steady-eyed, her presence radiating command. Harker, Bryce greeted, extending a hand. We've been tracking the spread of the disruptors. Distribution is slow, but it's happening. Zevra's fleet is holding at the edge of sensor range. They're watching, but for the first time, her commands are useless. Harker looked past the view screen, where Zevra's flagship hovered, a silent threat, unable to reach them with her voice. The bridge was alive with subdued celebration, officers trading nervous grins. But Harker felt no triumph, only an ache that hollowed him out from the inside. He watched Zevra's ship, knowing she was somewhere beyond the glass, enduring her first real defeat. He imagined her on her command deck, surrounded by subordinates, her power muted by human ingenuity. The silence between them was a wound that throbbed with longing. He stood at the viewport, heart heavy, replaying every moment. The desperate kiss, her whispered plea, the promise etched in claw and skin. Victory tasted like ashes. As he turned from the glass, a crewman approached, holding a secure comm tablet. Dr. Harker, private transmission, encrypted. Origin, Zevra's flagship. Harker took the device, hands trembling. The screen flickered and Zevra's face appeared, composed, her eyes steeled against emotion. Her voice, transmitted across the void, was measured and formal. Jonas Harker, I propose a meeting. Neutral ground. We have much to discuss. Her gaze lingered on him for a breathless moment, and in the silence that followed, possibility sparked. Harker's shuttle shuddered as it docked with the derelict outpost, metal groaning in protest against the vacuum. Beyond the frost-rimed airlock, the asteroid belt glimmered in the dark, a graveyard of lost stations and shattered ambition. He tightened his grip on the nullifier, heart hammering. The corridor was lit only by the blue pulse of emergency lamps, stretching shadows across the rust-streaked walls. He moved quietly, boots echoing on cold metal, following the signal Zevra had sent, a frequency just outside human hearing, but unmistakable to him now. She was waiting in the central chamber, standing tall amid broken consoles and drifting motes of dust. Zevra's armor was darker than before, battered and scorched at the edges, her skin almost luminous in the gloom. Her red hair spilled down her back in tangled waves. There was something different about her. More formidable, yes, but also more human. Her presence pulled at him, fierce and magnetic. You came, she said, her voice stripped of its usual grandeur, carrying only the low, thrumming music of anticipation, even knowing what I am, what I could do. Harker set the nullifier on the console, never taking his eyes off her. I trust you, he said quietly. Enough to meet you here, at least. A flicker of a smile touched her lips, but her eyes burned with tension. Do you know what it means, Jonas, to lose the thing that defines you? To stand before an enemy, or a lover, with nothing but words and hope? She stepped closer, the metal plates of her armor catching the half-light. I have always known power. Now I am forced to rely on wit, on persuasion, and I find it exhilarating, terrifying. He watched the struggle play across her face. You're not powerless, Zevra. Not here. Not now. She pressed him suddenly against the bulkhead, hands splayed across his chest, claws careful not to break the skin. The cold steel at his back made him shiver. Her breath washed over him, mingling challenge and desire. Prove it, she whispered. Trust me enough to give up your shield. 5 minutes. No nullifier, no defenses. Can you do that, Jonas Harker? Can you let me in? He hesitated, feeling the rush of fear and longing. The nullifier hummed at his fingertips, his last safeguard. But this was what they had come to, both of them, the edge of something new. He nodded, voice barely a whisper. 5 minutes. I'll try. His fingers found the switch, and the nullifier powered down. Instantly, the air changed. Zevra's presence surged, her voice vibrating through the chamber and into his bones. It was not the compulsion he remembered, not the overwhelming command to obey, but something richer, layered with invitation, desire, 1,000 unspoken questions. Her harmonics colored the world, amplifying every sensation. The roughness of metal against his back, the racing of his pulse, the burning intensity in her eyes. Zevra cupped his jaw, her thumb stroking his cheek. You feel it, don't you? My voice is not a weapon now. It is a bridge. She sang softly, notes rising and falling, threading through him, dissolving his reservations. Each word was a caress, a spark. He felt his mind open, thoughts intertwining with hers. Her fear, her hunger, her hope. He sensed it all, as if it were his own. He reached for her, hands sliding up her arms, marveling at the living strength beneath her skin. What are you doing to me? He breathed. She pressed her forehead to his, eyes shining. I'm showing you what it means to share, to surrender, not to lose, but to join. Their union was a fusion of body and mind, guided by her song. Zevra's harmonics set the pace, slow at first, building in intensity, until every touch and gasp reverberated between them. Their thoughts blurred, walls dissolving. Harker tasted her memories, the rush of battle, the loneliness of command, the secret ache for something more. She felt his wonder, his fear, his stubborn hope. Each sensation amplified, each emotion mirrored and returned, until they lost track of where one ended and the other began. The world narrowed to the press of skin, the echo of shared music, the electricity that arced between them. They collapsed together on the cold floor, armor and lab coat tangled, breath mingling in the quiet aftermath. For a time, there was only silence, an unfamiliar, fragile peace. Harker brushed Zevra's hair from her face, studying the vulnerability there. What happens now? He asked softly. She looked up at the ceiling, tracing the seams of ancient metal. I do not know. I have always been taught to conquer, to bend others to my will. But this... She rested her hand over his heart, feeling the echo of his pulse. This is different. I am not in control, and yet I am not afraid. He smiled, exhaustion and awe mingling in his eyes. Maybe that's what partnership means. Not dominance, not surrender. Just choosing each other. Zevra nodded, a faint smile curving her lips. It is unsettling, but beautiful. Before they could say more, alarms shrieked throughout the outpost. Red lights blazed, casting their entwined bodies in scarlet. Zevra leapt to her feet, gaze sharpened by urgency. Harker scrambled up beside her, heart pounding. A tactical holo flickered to life on a broken console. Fleet signatures, human and Zevran, swarmed the periphery of the asteroid field, weapons charged, engines hot. The bridge of war loomed, both sides converging with terrible inevitability. Zevra's jaw clenched as she read the signals. They've found us. My fleet will demand my return and my submission to Sarek. Your commanders will want my head. There is no path back, Jonas. Not without consequences. Harker, emboldened by their union, stepped in front of her, voice steady. Then maybe it's time for a new path. What if you didn't go back? What if you challenged Sarek? You could end this. Change everything. No more domination. No more empires built on fear. Just partnership. She searched his face, torn between hope and duty. You would risk war to try? He nodded, certainty ringing in his voice. I would risk everything for the chance to build something better. Together. For a heartbeat, the alarms and threats faded away. Zevra's hand closed around his, her grip fierce. Then let us rewrite the future, she said, her harmonics trembling with conviction. Side by side, they turned to face the uncertain dawn, their bodies still humming with resonance, ready to defy the empires that had shaped them. The crisis built to a fever pitch as High Commander Sarek's visage dominated every channel, projected across warships and into the command decks of both fleets. The old warlord's features were carved from stone, his voice crackling through the calm with the force of a planetary quake. Zevra, you are ordered to surrender yourself to fleet justice. Resist, and annihilation will be swift. There will be no mercy, no exceptions. Zevra stood at the center of the abandoned outpost, her armor still streaked with the dust of old battles, her chin lifted defiantly toward the hollow screen. Harker watched her from the human command center aboard ISS Resolute, his heart in his throat. Around him, Commander Bryce and her officers listened with growing dread. The two armadas, human and Zevran, hovered at the edge of ruin, weapons primed, every channel thrumming with threat. Zevra's reply rang clear. Then I invoke the right of the first voice. Ritual combat. Leadership must be earned, not inherited by terror. Will you face me, Sarek, or hide behind your fleet? The command deck fell silent. Even the humans knew the legend, ancient law, binding even the highest of Zevra's people. Sarek's eyes narrowed, jaw flexing. So be it. The challenge is accepted. Within hours, a neutral arena was constructed, a shimmering sphere of force, floating between the fleets, visible to every ship. Human and Zevran vessels clustered around, their crews gathered at viewports and holoscreens. The arena pulsed with anticipation. Harker paced the human command center, nerves raw. He had deactivated the nullifier, determined to hear every nuance of Zevra's voice, whatever the outcome. Commander Bryce stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes on the tactical feeds. She's brave, but Sarek is a legend, Bryce murmured. His voice is said to have shattered moons. No one's ever bested him in open resonance. She isn't like the others, Harker said quietly, unable to look away from the image of Zevra entering the arena. She'll find another way. Inside the force sphere, Zevra and Sarek faced each other across the humming field. Sarek was massive, his armor etched with the scars of centuries, his eyes burning with certainty. Zevra looked smaller, younger, but her stance radiated unbreakable resolve. Sarek's voice struck first, a seismic bellow that made the arena shudder. The force field rippled, threatening to buckle. Harker felt it in his chest, a physical blow, ancient and ruthless. Zevra staggered but did not fall. Instead, she answered with a harmony that absorbed Sarek's resonance, redirecting the force around her. Her voice was nimble, inventive, drawing from battle songs, lullabies, even laughter. She matched Sarek's power with ingenuity, countering every assault with a new adaptation. The duel escalated. Sarek unleashed a barrage of layered frequencies, his song a weapon of dominance and dread. Zevra responded with shifting counterpoints, her harmonies weaving through his, nullifying, redirecting, sometimes even transforming his power into bursts of light that danced across the field. The arena trembled, energy arcing between them, the air charged with the crackle of voices at war. Harker's breath caught as Zevra shifted tactics. Her melody changed, softer, richer, no longer about defense or attack. She began to sing for unity, her voice reaching for Sarek's, entwining instead of opposing. The effect was immediate. Sarek's next attack faltered, his strength faltering as Zevra's resonance amplified his own, but reshaped it. Not as destruction, but as creation. Her harmonics gathered his force, spinning it into a new, greater sound, one that included them both. Sarek hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. His power, always solitary, was suddenly vulnerable. He pressed harder, his song growing jagged with desperation, but Zevra's unity was unbreakable. Her voice rose, enveloping his, drawing it into a shared harmony that resonated through every vessel, every listener, on both sides of the conflict. On the command deck, Harker felt it, a surge of hope, of possibility, of something greater than victory or defeat. Bryce blinked, stunned, her skepticism dissolving in the face of Zevra's transformation. "Is she singing with him?" Bryce whispered. Harker nodded, awe in his voice. "She's changing the rules. She's making him part of the answer." Sarek, seeing his dominance slip away, broke the pattern. With a furious roar, he charged, crossing the arena in a blur of motion, claws outstretched. But Zevra was ready. She caught his momentum, turning it, guiding him with a dancer's grace into the pulsing energy barrier. The field flared, draining Sarek's strength, his body racked by the force of his own attack. He crumpled to his knees, chest heaving. Zevra approached, her voice soft but carrying through the entire arena. "The old ways end here. I will not rule by fear. You taught me strength, Sarek. Now learn unity." Sarek looked up, face streaked with defeat and wonder. Slowly, painfully, he unclasped his insignia, a black metal torque studded with the sigils of his house, and extended it to Zevra in both hands. "I yield," he rasped, voice broken. "Take it, Warlord. I have no more to give." Zevra took the insignia, but instead of donning it, she knelt before Sarek and offered it back. "Lead with me, not above, not below. Beside, through consent, not coercion. This is how we move forward." The arena fell silent. On every ship, Zevran and human alike held their breath as Sarek, trembling, nodded in acceptance. "Beside, then, I will try." The force sphere dissolved, energy dispersing in a wash of peace. Harker exhaled, tears burning his eyes as the resonance faded. Beside him, Bryce grinned, shaking her head in disbelief. Across the fleet, both sides erupted in cheers and astonished laughter. As Zevra and Sarek emerged from the arena, flanked by envoys and witnesses, Harker knew the universe had shifted. A new era, born not of domination, but of unity, had begun. And at its heart stood a warlord and a scientist, proof that even in the darkest hours, harmony could be forged from discord. Aboard the human cruiser, the air vibrated with anticipation. Every view screen across both fleets blinked to life, transmitting a singular image. Zevra, newly adorned in the insignia of Supreme Warlord, stood on the command dais. Her armor gleamed, now less a suit of war than a mosaic of promise, battered plates newly burnished, bearing marks of both past battles and future hope. Light from the star beyond the viewport cast her green skin in luminous relief. She looked neither alien nor human, but something new, an emissary of possibility. As the bridge fell silent, Zevra drew a deep breath. Her voice, when it came, was richer than ever before. Resonant, layered not only with strength, but with partnership and hope. To all who listen, human, Zevran, and every soul between, hear me. She began, her harmonics reaching beyond the translation programs, striking at the core of every listener. There has been enough blood, enough fear. Today, we stand at the edge of a new era, not through conquest, but through unity. She paused, letting the words settle. On every ship, from the smallest scout vessel to the flagship of High Commander Sarek, soldiers and scientists, engineers and envoys, watched in rapt attention. I call for a ceasefire, Zevra continued, her tone both authoritative and inviting. Let us lower our weapons, not in surrender, but in wisdom. Let us talk, not as conqueror and conquered, but as people who have learned the cost of domination. Let us share what we have: technology, knowledge, and, most of all, trust. My people's harmonics will no longer be used to command, but to create. And we welcome what you offer in return. A ripple of surprise moved through the alien ranks. On the human side, officers exchanged wary glances, but hope bloomed in their eyes. The Zevran fleet, once a wall of threat, flickered with cautious optimism, ships powering down weapons, opening channels for dialogue, their bridge lights softening from red to gold. Across the void, the empire that had once been held together by fear now hesitated on the threshold of something unimagined. Sarek stood at Zevra's side, his battered insignia now joined with hers. When she finished, he nodded and added, "We are stronger in harmony. We accept the Supreme Warlord's call. Let us begin, together." The transmission ended, but its echoes lingered, settling into the bones of every crew member, every witness, as if the universe itself had exhaled after centuries of tension. In the quiet that followed, Harker made his way through the bustling corridors of the cruiser. Crew members stepped aside, nodding with a new respect. The rumors had already spread. The Supreme Warlord was not the monster they'd feared, but a leader who had risked everything to change the world. He reached the observation deck, a broad sweep of glass and steel looking out over the endless stars. Zevra stood alone at the viewport, arms folded, head bowed as if listening to some distant melody. The tension that once clung to her frame had eased, replaced by a contemplative stillness. Harker approached quietly, but she sensed him, glancing over her shoulder with a small, almost shy smile. "It's done," she said, her voice quiet but still carrying that new warmth. "For the first time, I spoke and did not expect obedience. I offered only hope." He joined her at the glass, gazing at the asteroid belt glimmering beyond, where ships from two civilizations now drifted in uneasy peace. "They heard you," he said softly. "More than that, they believed you." Zevra nodded, her fierce eyes glimmering with memories. "When I first came to this world, I thought power was everything, that to lead was to bend others, to impose my will. But your resistance, your refusal to be conquered, it forced me to see another way." She turned to him, her hand finding his, their fingers twining. "The voice I once used to command now carries something else. Not just strength, but the promise of connection." Harker squeezed her hand, feeling the old ache in his chest transform into something bright and unfamiliar. "You changed me too, Zevra. I used to think safety meant keeping myself apart, protected by walls and reason. Now I know that real strength is letting someone in." They stood together, looking out at the fleets poised for the next chapter. The hum of the engines, the distant chatter of diplomats, even the faint song of Zevran harmonics carried through the deck, blending into a symphony of tentative hope. "I have always feared silence," Zevra confessed, her tone raw. "Among my people, it meant isolation, defeat. But with you, the quiet is full. Every moment is possibility." Harker leaned his head against hers, voice low and certain. This isn't the end, Zevra. It's the beginning. We get to decide what kind of world comes next. She lifted her gaze, fierce and searching. And if the old guard resists? If partnership proves harder than war? He met her eyes, unwavering. Then we keep singing. We keep reaching out, showing them there's another way. For a moment, neither spoke. The tension that had once threatened to shatter them both now held the promise of a future built on respect and hope. The observation deck was filled with the light of distant stars, each one a promise. Zevra's expression softened, the old edge of command tempered by something gentler. "Let's find the right song for this new world," she said, her harmonics trembling with both certainty and wonder. Beyond the glass, the fleets waited, not for an order, but for a vision. And as Zevra prepared to speak again, her voice rang out with a new resonance, one shaped not by dominance, but by the fragile, indomitable hope of true partnership.